Okay, so we're a dozen weeks into the 2023 NFL season. We are two-thirds of the way done with the regular season, and it just feels so weird, man. Like, I know it's been almost 3 months, and it's not like, man, like these 3 months have flown by. Like, it feels like it's been 3 months. But also, it does kind of feel like this has gone by really fast. Like, you guys remember when the Broncos were absolutely fucking terrible? When they gave up 70 to the Dolphins, it was like, oh, so the Dolphins are winning the Super Bowl, and the Broncos are going to be in contention for Caleb Williams. And now the Dolphins are still good, but they look about as good as most of the other AFC contenders. Meanwhile, Denver this week is playing a game that deadass might decide a wild card position. This is not something I saw coming, kind of from either the Broncos or the Texans, and that's why I love football so much. That's what's so exciting. That's why I always say a team is not out of it until they are done. Because I have seen turnarounds. I've seen mid-season turnarounds. Like, I've seen teams start terrible and end great. I've seen teams start phenomenal and then end like Dookie. It can happen. I don't think anyone has clinched a playoff spot yet. I think the Eagles are the closest. If they win, I think if they beat the 49ers, then they at least I think clinch a wild card spot at least. I don't think they can clinch the division yet because Dallas is right there, but if they beat Dallas next week, then excuse me. At that point, that'll also be a season sweep. They might have enough wins at that point. I haven't checked, so I don't want to be throwing wrong information out there, but that sounds about right. But to actually get into the games, we start in Detroit because it was Thanksgiving, and I hope you all did have a lovely Thanksgiving. I had a great Thanksgiving. I had a great Thanksgiving weekend. I've had a lovely week so far, with one pretty notable exception to that, which, oh boy, I'm gonna get to. But we start in Detroit, where the Packers went in and won 29-22. This is a game where the Lions were just down early and down often. I don't think I ever saw them have the lead, as I didn't watch the game from the very start. I was a few minutes late. Actually, I was about a quarter or half a quarter late because I thought the game was going to start at noon. It started like 11. I was like, oh, shit. I need to go head over to my dad so I can watch this fucking game. There were 3 fumbles. I think a couple of them were on fourth down attempts. The Lions were 1 for 5 on fourth down, and that one success was very late in the game. I think it was on their final drive. The Packers were just beating them, man. There were a couple really standout plays. There was one where Amon-Ra St. Brown, aka the Sun God, had this great simultaneous catch where the defender just ripped it out of there. That was badass. Jordan Love had this throw across his body that was complete, and I think it picked up a first down too. That was a really good play by the Packers. Dangerous as hell, but hey, it fucking worked. Speaking of dangerous plays by the Packers that didn't work, they had this 4th and 1, like deep in Lions territory, that didn't work. It was after the quarter, so I think it was the very start of the second quarter, where the running back, who I think it was Dylan, because Jones didn't play, ran into Jordan Love, and then they just got both tackle. It was pretty funny. The Lions ran a fake punt that went nowhere. That was also kind of funny. I remember saying last week, it was like, don't look now, but the Packers are 4-6, which is not a good record. That's usually not something I would point out for a team, but again, I've seen the Packers go 4-6 and then run the table the rest of the regular season and then win a couple playoff games. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it seems like this is a team that's starting to hit its stride and find its groove. And honestly, they really should have won that Pittsburgh game. So instead of 5-6, which they are now, they should be. That would be, I think, 6-5. Yeah, sorry. I think they really should be 6-5. And with the way the Seahawks are kind of floundering, we'll talk about them in a bit, I won't be surprised to see the Packers get a play. I mean, the Vikings are kind of floundering a bit too, and I don't remember if they've played each other yet. I think the Vikings and the Packers have played each other once. That second game, though, might kind of be another one of those, or like this might end up deciding a wild card spot, which again for them would depend on like their division record and such. But having at least one game against the Lions is going to help the Packers. And unlike the Vikings, they beaten the Bears. Actually, have the Vikings and Bears played? Because they played Monday. Was that their first or their second game together? I want to say it was their first. The Packers might end up having a better divisional record than the Vikings. They might catch them. They might catch the Seahawks. I don't remember what their schedule is off the top of my head. I know they play Kansas City next week. I'm like, even if the Packers are rolling, I still have the Chiefs winning. But I remember when I looked at the rest of their schedule, I was like, that's a pretty favorable schedule. Green Bay might go to the playoffs, and the Lions, that's 2 weeks in a row where they haven't looked good. They've looked very sloppy. They're turning the ball over like crazy, and they're playing the Saints next week, which, say what you will about the Saints, I'm going to. But you are playing a very opportunistic defense, at the very least a very opportunistic secondary, and you can barely hang on to the fucking ball. I still think the Lions win that game, but it might not, it's not, I don't think it's going to be a super easy win. I still expect them to make the playoffs. I still expect the Lions to win the division, but they definitely need to make sure they're keeping an eye on the Packers in their rearview mirror. Really good win for Green Bay. So moving on to the second game on Thursday, where Washington went to Dallas and got spanked 45-20. This game was 20-10 at halftime. And then the Cowboys exploded in the fourth quarter. And the thing about the Cowboys is I don't know what to think of this team. Because on the one hand, I look at them and go, okay, 3 losses. A very close loss to the Eagles, who are one of the best teams in the league. A blowout loss to the 49ers, who are one of the best teams in the league. And while I don't like that the first time you played a contender, you got your asses beat, teams do get blown out. Shit does happen. Sometimes it's just not your day. And I feel like even though they lost to Philly, they showed a lot of heart, they showed a lot of grit, and that's the kind of thing you want to see from a good team. The other loss was to the Cardinals, and sometimes you just lose them. Like, shit does happen. I also look at the Cowboys and go, a lot of the teams they've beaten, they have destroyed. Look at what they did to Washington this week. Look at what they did to the Giants both times they played the Giants. I want to see that kind of dominance. I want to see that kind of destruction. Do you remember what they did to the Patriots? The Jets wasn't like this huge dominant win, but I remember watching it, or like at least following it, and being like, this is closer than I thought it would be. But it was still, they still won, I believe, by double digits. This is a good team. They're doing what they should do. They're beating the teams in front of them. They're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. On the other hand, when you actually look at them, though, you can only play who's in front of you. You can only play who's on your schedule. I get it. They haven't beaten a team with a winning record this year. And the 2 that they played, they lost. One of them was close, but they still lost. They were the ones that made those crucial mistakes down the line that cost them the game. And against the 49ers, they got their asses kicked. This feels like a typical Cowboys season. They look really good against inferior competition. And then when the lights are a bit brighter and the teams they're facing are a lot better, they can't quite get it done. Maybe they get their asses beat. Maybe they look really good but can't quite finish. That's just kind of been their story. And it's not just under Dak, it was under Romo too. It's not a team that, at least with Dak, I see them in the playoffs more. You don't really see those 8-8 seasons, so I'll give them that. I want to be impressed, and part of me is. Deron Bland has the record for the most pick sixes in a season. And it's like, chalk up another one for Sam Howell too, but Like, holy shit, this defense is good. This offense is good. And then I've heard Cowboys fans say, like, hey, look, Jerry Jones is finally in the Ring of Honor. We've lifted the curse. This is it. This is it. This is it. Maybe this is. Maybe this is the fucking season. I don't know. But it looks familiar. And if I'm a Cowboys fan, I don't like how familiar it is. They play Seattle next week, and that'll be, hey, that's a team with a winning record. They should beat them because Dallas looks way better than Seattle does right now. If they lose that game, and I mean, it's not like the Seahawks are dog shit or anything. Again, they're a team with a winning record. But with how like vulnerable Seattle looks, if the Cowboys lose, I'm really gonna have my doubts. And speaking of which, the last game on Thanksgiving was San Francisco going to Seattle and taking care of business 31-13, which is one of my favorite scores in football. I just like 31-13. It's a fucking palindrome. No. Yeah, it is a palindrome. Sorry, my brain stopped for a second. But like, I just really like that. I like the kind of mirrored scores. I just think it's fucking neat. This was a game where Geno, I remember he threw an interception and then he very nearly threw a second one. That was like, I remember like that's not a great looking throw. Their Seahawks only touchdown was on a pick six, which I think was also a deflection. Oh, excuse me. There was a point in the game where Seattle seemed like they were taking momentum back. They were down 14. They had the ball. They were inside the 49ers 10. And instead of scoring a touchdown, they kicked a field goal. And there was a point earlier in the game where they had missed one. I don't remember if it was like a 50-plus yarder or not. But I remember kind of watching that and going, okay, if they had scored the touchdown here, they'd only be down 7. If they had made that field goal earlier, they'd only be down 4. Now you're still down a score. You still need a touchdown. But they would be really keeping pace. But this is now still a double-digit deficit against the fucking Niners. Kittle did not have himself a day. Maybe he did blocking, but like in terms of my fantasy team, didn't do shit. Ayuk had a late game touchdown, which pissed me off because I was playing against it. Like, I lost my fantasy matchup by like 5 points or some shit. So all those little kind of things add up, and I'm like, if Kittle would caught that would have been way better for me, but it is what it is. Debo had himself a fucking game. McCaffrey had himself a fucking game. I'm going to be honest, McCaffrey is my MVP. I think at this point, it's probably going to Jalen Hurts, and I don't have beef with that because Jalen Hurts is really fucking good. You can make an argument if he's even really the MVP on the Eagles, and I don't mean that to throw any shade on Jalen Hurts. It is just the offensive line, I think, is the fucking MVP of the Eagles. Like, I remember several years ago, this was, I believe it was 2016. No, this wasn't 2016. This was 2015. I think it was the Seahawks-Patriots Super Bowl. Maybe that wasn't 2016. Okay, no, 2016 was the Falcons. 2017 was the Eagles. Those two by the Seahawks. Oh, that's right, because the Broncos, I think, were Broncos, Panthers, I think was 2015. So I think I'm thinking of 2014. Anyways, my point is, I was going to say something about the Cowboys, but I don't remember what I was going to say. This bothers me now. What was my point? I was so focused on getting the year, I actually forgot the point. Fuck. Never mind, I guess. I completely lost what I was trying to say. Sorry, now I'm looking at my notes and I'm getting even more confused. Anyways, the 49ers are really, 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 really good. The Seahawks are definitely not as dominant, though. Or, I mean, clearly they're not as dominant. They kind of got their asses kicked. Okay, I'm just going to drink some water real quick. I'm sorry. I got so fucking lost on that tangent and then lost my breadcrumbs on the way home. this is really bothering me because I know I wanted to say something about that Cowboys team. Oh, I remember my point now because I was talking about the MVP and I was talking about the Eagles and the offensive line. That was it. Thank you. It was in that 2014 season where the Cowboys were like the 3 seed. Were they the 3 or the 2? Because Packers, yeah, Seahawks were the 1, Packers were the 2, Cowboys were the 3. Okay. Where I think they went 12-4, maybe 13-3. I think it was 12-4. They were undefeated on the road. And Romo was getting MVP talks. DeMarco Murray was getting MVP talks that year because both of them were playing out of their minds. And I remember just thinking to myself, I don't think either of them should. Not because they're not having unbelievable seasons, but because the honest MVP of the Cowboys is the offensive line. Excuse me, if anyone's getting MVP votes, it should just be all 5 dudes up front. And to me, the Eagles are very similar. It's not that Jalen Hurts is bad or anything. It's like, I think he's great. I think he would be a deserving MVP, especially after the game he just had. Like, holy shit. But to me, it's the Eagles' O-line is probably the MVP of that team. Anyways, that's what I had to say about the Seahawks and 49ers game. The only other thing is JSN had a phenomenal one-handed catch. It was kind of like that Garrett Wilson one on Monday night where he tipped the ball to himself, except here, like, he's falling down and he tips the ball up and he catches it. That was fucking impeccable. Next is the Black Friday game, which in true Amazon fashion was pretty fucking awful, was the Dolphins at the Jets, where the Dolphins won 34-13. Tua had 2 turnovers in the second quarter. One was returned for a touchdown. There was a pick 6. There was a point where Mostert had like the easiest touchdown I've ever seen. It didn't even really look like he was trying to score. He was just trying to get outside and like get some yards, and the defense just kind of stopped. So he was like, oh, I'm okay. I'll just score. It was weird. It was kind of bizarre. God bless Jets fans, man, having to put up with that shit. I mean, Tim Boyle did about, you know what, I can't even say he did about as well as expected. Because he showed me something I don't think I've ever seen before. I've seen a lot of Hail Marys. I've seen a good amount be intercepted. I've seen a good amount, the majority, fall incomplete. And every now and then, I've seen one completed and I've seen a touchdown. I'm not saying this has never happened, because there's no way this is the first time. But I don't think I'd ever seen it before. I don't think I have ever in my life seen... I don't think I've ever in my life seen a Hail Mary be intercepted and returned 99 yards for a touchdown. I've seen it referred to as the Hail Mary, and I love it. That's amazing. It's not like the Jets were like really in the game. I think at that point the score was close, and it was either, because I remember they missed the extra point after the pick 6, so it was either like 10-6 or 17-6. It was something like that. And then the Hail Mary just sapped all of their fucking energy, dude. It was... I feel really bad for that team. I hope they rebound next week because, you know, they're playing the Falcons. And as a Saints fan, I need the Falcons to lose. Do I expect it? No. It's the Jets. And I'm sorry. You guys really deserve better. After that is Tampa Bay and Indy, where the Colts won 27-20. This is a weird, really weird thing to say. I kind of forgot the Colts were in the NFL. That sounds really, really bad. But honestly, I think what happened was after Big Tony got injured, my brain just kind of went, oh, okay. It's not like the Colts are going to completely fold after this, but I don't think they're going to be that good. And then there was that like crazy Browns game that they had, which A, was amazing, and 2, was bullshit because, yeah, the Colts got hosed. And honestly, like, the Colts, the fact that right now they're the 7 seed is wild to me. Like, I did not think this team was going to be that good. They should be higher because they and the Browns should be flipped. I mean, honestly, because of that, maybe the Browns would be out of the playoffs and the Broncos would be in. Because Cleveland, without that win, I believe they would go to 6-5. Denver just beat them, so I think Denver would have that tiebreaker and leapfrog over them. But there's also, I don't think they have the Texans and the Browns played. I think they would be scheduled to play. I'm not sure if they already have. Maybe they play each other later. That might be another one of those games where, like, I did not think Texans Browns would be damn near a playoff deciding game, but here we are. Anyways, though, after that injury to Big Tony, I was like, I don't think the Colts are really going to be much of anything. And then they had a bye week. I don't think it was the week after the Browns, because I think that's when they played the Saints and we actually won that game. Then they were off, and then they played a game in Germany, which was super early, so I kind of forgot it happened. I was like, oh, right, the Colts. How did I forget about this team? Like, I feel dumb. They're in the playoffs right now? They're that good? What the fuck? But props to them, man. What's the name of the coach? It's like Shane Steichen? I feel like I'm completely making up the last name. He's got those guys playing. I remember one thing I really noticed from watching the highlights of this game is Gardner Minshew was really good at play action. Just like making fakes and throwing the ball. I don't know why that sounded so stupid to me, but I feel like he's really, really good operating on a play action. He still had a bad interception. I remember there was another one that's like that should have been intercepted. Yeah, I don't know how to talk. I feel like he got really lucky there. I'm happy that they beat the Bucks. Of course I am. Mayfield had a couple turnovers. Evans had a couple touchdowns. What's his name? Is it Tyler? I know it's Durham. I was like, is it Tyler Durham? Maybe, but I also know that's Fight Club, which I'm not supposed to talk about, of course. But he had this like great catch where he just fucking mossed a dude and like muscled his way down to like the 1 yard line. That was really fucking cool. It's like, I might hate the Bucks, but I gotta give players props when they do cool shit. Could the Colts really make the playoffs? They have another game against Houston. That's really big right now. They're already done playing the Jags. I think next week they play Tennessee, who looks so broken. I mean, they still won last week or this week, but that would be last week, I guess. They did win, but I mean, they played the Panthers. They're supposed to win. Come on. I don't really have anything else to say about this game, so I'm just going to move on. So we're going to move on. Patriots and the Giants. The Giants won 10-7. This is a game where Tommy DeVito threw the game-winning touchdown. Where the Giants are on a fucking win streak. They've won 2 in a row. They beat Washington, which isn't impressive. And they beat the Patriots, which feels weird to say, but is a less impressive. They're still on a win streak. We fucking take it. I say we, I'm not a Giants fan, but, it's like we take that. Jones threw an awful interception in the red zone. I don't remember if it was in the end zone, but I was like, that's fucking bad. And then it was returned deep and ended up kind of setting up that Giants touchdown. Bailey Zappi came in, and then the drive where he comes in, they score their only points of the game. And then Zappi throws a pick later, too, because the Patriots can't have nice things. Well, I mean, they had a couple decades of nice things, but, I guess all that karma, karma's really coming back for them. Sorry, just talking about karma and the Patriots reminds me of the 2017 Super Bowl with them and the Eagles, because I remember that was the season where there were a few games. I think it was the Jets, the Bills, and the Steelers, where the other team scored a touchdown. It was either a game-winning or a game-tying touchdown. I know the Steelers was game-winning. I feel like the Jets was game-tying. Maybe the Bills wasn't, but it was like they scored a touchdown. And then after review, like, no, that's not a touchdown, even though it really, really fucking clearly was. And then in that Super Bowl, There were 2 to 3 catches. I think both were for touchdowns. I think one was I think there was one to Ertz where it was a little questionable if he like had possession when he broke the plane, because I think he might have fumbled it too. And then there was the Corey Clement one where he catches it like right on the edge of the end zone and the ball's kind of bobbling a bit as he goes out. It's like, okay, that shouldn't have been a touchdown because he didn't really have possession when he was inbounds. And when it was secured, then he had stepped out of bounds. But the official said, no, that's a touchdown. And it really felt like, man, the Patriots' karma for those bullshit touchdowns that got overturned are now coming back to haunt them. And it made watching that game really fucking satisfying. They had a chance to tie the game, kicked a 35-yard field goal that would have tied it, and they shanked it. And then the Giants won. There's a part of me that looks at this and goes, this has to be intentional. The Patriots under Belichick can't be this bad. Are they tanking for Caleb Williams? I'm like, no. Belichick wants that record. He's not intentionally losing games. And like Kraft has been very vocal about how upset he is about all this losing and how badly he wants to win because that's what he's used to. But are they playing the long game? Like if they end up with a number 1 pick or the number 2 pick, could they get Caleb Williams? And if that happens, does Belichick stay? Or is it like, Bill, we love you, but you need to go. We're going to bring in someone else, regardless of their draft order. But they have, I think they're either number 2 or number 3 on the draft boards, because I think they've played more games than, I think their bye is coming up. And because of that, they've played more games than Arizona. And because of that, they have more losses than Arizona. I might be making that up, but I think that sounds correct. Actually, let me check something real quick. Do they have their bye coming up? No, they don't have their bye this week. So I might be making that up. But I know they have the same amount of wins as Arizona. They have double the amount of wins as Carolina, which, 1. If the Bears end up with a number 1 pick, do they keep Fields and trade it? Or do they trade Fields and take Caleb Williams, which I know was a big thing last year when they had the number 1 pick. Carolina, though, might win another game or two. I feel like they will steal a game or two in the division. I honestly think the Saints are going to lose to them at some point. It's not going to surprise me when it happens. Which, depending on how that goes, the Patriots might get that pick. I don't know. Bill might not want to leave at that point. Maybe they won't want him to leave at that point. Or maybe it is just like, nah, I'm going to LA to coach Justin Herbert. We'll see what happens, but I feel like at this point the Giants have 4, maybe 5 wins. I think they're kind of out of it. Now they might get someone else like Drake May or something, but I don't think, as terrible as they are, and boy, this feels weird to say, but the Giants aren't bad enough to get Caleb Williams anymore. That really is Chicago through Carolina, because Chicago now also has 5 wins. Maybe it's 4. Because I think they're a game behind the Saints, not including the tiebreaker, so I think Chicago has 4 wins. But it really right now feels like the Bears through Carolina, Arizona, and New England. So we'll see how that goes. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Pittsburgh won 16-10. I remember Jamar Chase had a couple catches off on deflections, and that was pretty cool to see. Joe Mixon had this really big run near the end of the game that was cool. There was this really funny play where I don't remember which Steelers player it was. It might have been Najee, but there was someone who fumbled, and Deontay Johnson was standing nearby. And as there's this scrum for the football, I think a Steelers player like picked it up and like returned it for a bit. And hi Bob. Deontay Johnson just kind of stood there and didn't give a shit. It was really funny to watch. Like, just something about fucking Pittsburgh and their receivers, man. I don't know what it is, but it was funny as fuck. But after firing Matt Canada, which is something that Steelers fans have been wanting since last season, the Steelers put up 400 yards of offense for the first time all season. I don't remember when they said the last time that happened was. I don't remember if that was last year. But it's one of those you're like, what do you know? All you had to do was fire. It's really like the Raiders and Josh McDaniels, where it's you fired the guy in charge of the offense, and that's what made the offense good, which is really funny and really sad at the same time. But they did it, and they were able to get that win. I mean, the Bengals without Joe Burrow, there's still a lot of good pieces on this team. It's not like they got blown out or anything. I have this weird feeling that they're going to upset Jacksonville next week, but I do think with Burrow's season over, I do think the Bengals season is just kind of over. I don't even think they can sneak it for a wild card spot, given how congested everything is. I mean, I guess that could maybe help. It's like, everyone's going to be cannibalizing each other, but do I really, at this point, do I see them leapfrogging the Broncos? No. The Texans have a tiebreaker over them. And then I don't think they're going to be able to leap Pittsburgh or Cleveland. Oh, sorry, my cat's sitting on my lap and he's just being a little sweetie. He's getting so snug and comfy. But, yeah, it's a good, I think Pittsburgh now is 7-4. So they're only 2 wins away from continuing Tomlin's streak of no losing seasons. And I think they will. Who are they playing next week? Let me check real quick. Oh, wait, that's not right. They're playing, yeah, because I was like, I think it's a game they should win. Yeah, they're playing Arizona. I think they'll definitely win that game, so they'll be right on the cusp again, and they have another game against the Bengals, which they'll probably win. Another game against the Ravens, which I really don't know how that one's going to go. Do they have another? No, they're already done with Cleveland. Let's see. Have they played Seattle yet? Or they played the Rams. I don't know if they played the Seahawks. That also feels like a very winnable game at this point. Like, I think Pittsburgh's gonna get their 9 wins at least. Will they make the playoffs? Again, it's super congested, so maybe not. But I think they probably will. Again, having at least 1 win against Baltimore might really help them in some tiebreakers. The next one, Carolina and Tennessee. Tennessee won 17-10. This game was so bad it got the coach fired. Frank Reich, poor bastard. This is 2 years in a row he has been fired mid-season. This is 2 years in a row where the Panthers coach has been fired mid-season. I have no idea who's going to be coaching Carolina next year. I know it's not going to be Bill Belichick. They might try to throw a bunch of money at him, but I don't think he wants to go somewhere that unstable with a team that looks this bad that doesn't even have their first round pick, which would probably end up being number 1 overall. I mean, just that alone, you're going to be tied to this quarterback who maybe Bryce Young is going to end up being a fucking stud. I don't know. But at least in his rookie year, isn't looking great. And the offensive line looks fucking terrible. It's not a situation I think a lot of people just want to go into unless you really believe in Bryce Young. And if you do, you do. Like, that's fine. But when you factor in, okay, we don't have a first round pick, and we would have had our fucking pick of the litter. We could have gotten, you're probably not going to take Williams because you just took Young. It's like we could have gotten Marvin Harrison Jr. and like really given Young some help. We could have maybe gotten an O-lineman so we felt like we really needed more. We can't. And then with Tepper, and the fact that his name is so close to Temper after firing 2 coaches in 2 years is kind of amazing to me. That's the part that you're like, I don't want to go there. So I'm just really, really curious to see who ends up doing it. And in terms of the game itself, Bryce Young got a fumble, the Titans recovered, and then a few plays later, Derrick Henry scored, and that's essentially the difference in the game. The Panthers had a chance down 17-10 with a little over 2 minutes left to go down the field and tie the game, and I don't think they got a first down. They basically just went nowhere, and it's like, that's the Panthers season. You had a chance to do something, and then you just didn't. I mean, it's kind of sad. I don't care because I'm a Saints fan. I want to see the Panthers look terrible. And again, it's not like I hate the players. It's not like I hate the coaches. I don't have any personal beef against any of them. Maybe there's like one, but off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody. But again, it's not like with the Bucs. I'm like, no, I don't like Mike Evans. He's on my fantasy team, but I don't like Mike Evans. I don't think I have that with anyone on the Panthers, but as a division rival, I revel in their misery. I imagine it's what Eagle and Cowboys fans feel when they look at the Giants right now. Okay, it's not time for the New Orleans-Atlanta game yet. Next up is Jacksonville at Houston, where Jacksonville won 24-21. This is a game where the Texans missed 2 50-plus yard field goals, which again, like I always say, that's fucking hard to do. I'm not going to shit on a kicker for doing that. But in a game you lose by 3, those points matter. But at the same time, Jacksonville also missed a 50-plus yard field goal. So in that regard, maybe it would have been tied. But then Jacksonville also, at the end of the first half, got stuffed at the 1-yard line. It didn't have time to kick a field goal, so they just kind of got fucked. Which, you roll the dice, you get fucked. It happens. My understanding, because I didn't get to watch the game, I've only seen the highlights and kind of followed it a bit as it was happening, is that apparently the officiating in this game was fucking awful. And that there was like several... Like, I remember reading at some points people saying it's like, wow, the Jaguars were just gifted extra possessions on these terrible DPI calls. The Texans got robbed. And I remember seeing in other places people saying, wow, the Texans were just gifted a touchdown by the refs. What absolute bullshit is this? So it sounds like there was hosing on both sides, which is never good. You don't want to see that. I can't really speak to it because I wasn't able to see it. What I can speak to is this is a really bad loss for Houston. Not in the sense of like, man, you guys got your asses beat. You can't compete with the big boys. Like they beat the Bengals with Joe Burrow. They can compete. Have they played the Ravens yet? I don't think they've played the Ravens yet. But like they've beaten Jacksonville already once. Did they beat the Bills? Have they played the Bills? No, they don't. The Bills are on their schedule this year. I feel like there's another game. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there was another team that they played and beat that was like, oh, they're maybe kind of punching above their weight class here. Maybe not. But they are a good team. They can hang with the big boys. They can beat some of the big boys. This is a bad loss because now they're 6-5 and Jacksonville is 8-3. They're 2 games behind, and any tiebreakers would go to division records. If they had won, both teams would be 7-4, and the Texans would own the season sweep in the tiebreaker. It is not to say that, oh yeah, if they won the game, they would win the division, because there's still fucking 6 weeks left in the season. A lot of time for shit to happen. And same thing, just because they're 2 games back, does not, with 6 to go, does not mean they are eliminated from the division yet. But a tied record with the season sweep in your pocket looks a lot better than 2 games back with a split series. I still think they're a good team. Again, with the AFC being as congested as it is, I don't know if they're playoff bound. I don't know who's playoff bound. I feel like the Ravens feel like a lock. The Chiefs are a lock. The Dolphins? I mean, half that division is terrible. And then there's the Bills, which should be good and kind of are, but also aren't. I mean, I feel like the Dolphins are gonna get that division win, but the Bills aren't entirely out of that yet either. There's a non-zero chance that Buffalo goes on a run with this crazy schedule, catches the Dolphins, wins the division, and the Dolphins get a playoff spot over the Broncos because of that 70-point game, which would absolutely suck for Denver. But I could kind of see that happening. I don't know where that would leave the Texans, by the way. But boy, this AFC like wild card race, even like a lot of these division races. Actually, let me think. Because I mean, the Chiefs own the West. Like that's not really a question. The AFC East, it's between Buffalo and Miami, and if Buffalo can get their shit together, they can make it interesting. The South is I can't even say it's a two-team race because the Colts are also kind of right there. Like that's, I don't think the Colts are going to win it though, but they could maybe do something interesting. They might just play, I mean, I can't even say they'll play spoiler because they're trying to get into the playoffs themselves. The North, the Ravens don't have it completely on lock either. The Browns, I mean, with the Browns with all their injuries, I don't think are going to win the division. I think they might fall out of the playoffs at some point. The Steelers could still win that division though. Like there are some fun and interesting races going on. And I wouldn't say the NFC South is a fun race. I wouldn't say it's an interesting race, but it's a race nonetheless cuz now I get to talk about the Saints. I get to talk about the New Orleans Atlanta game where Atlanta won 24-15. Here's the one good thing I can say about this. I guess not the only. The uniforms on both sides look great. I think they looked awesome. I want to see that Saints uniform, that fucking helmet more. Not because I hate our regular colors or our regular fucking helmet, but it looks sick as hell. I loved it. Blake Grupe, our kicker. Talked a lot of shit about him in these review videos, and there's been a lot of shit to say about him. He lined up to kick 6 field goals, and he made 5 of them. And honestly, I'm not even going to be mad at him for that last one. It was within his range, and I'll be honest, a lot of those field goal makes, I was like, they're in. He's making them. They're a lot tighter than I'd like, but you know what? If he's making them, he's making them. I don't care. We were down 2 scores with less than 2 minutes at that point. We would have had to get the field goal, make an onside kick, and then score a touchdown, which we weren't able to do all fucking game. So I feel less of, oh my god, he missed that kick. There went our chance. And more of, you put us out of our misery in this game, and you were the only person on the team to score points. Actually, that's not true, and I'll talk about that in a second. Put a pin in the wall. But you were the only one to score points for our team. So you get a pass on missing 1 when you made 5. Good fucking game. I think Olave had over 100 yards. He was having himself a day. Good shit. I think Kamara in total had over 100 yards in the air and on the ground. Good shit. Tyrann Mathieu had 2 interceptions. Honey Badger didn't give no fucks. Good shit. The defense was not good. The defense gave up, I think it was 228 yards on the ground. That's awful. The Falcons, on their last drive, I don't think they threw the ball. And it's not even like, all right, we had to get one first down and the game. They didn't throw the ball. No, it was just run. 3rd and long, we're going to run. First down, we get 16 yards on the ground. 3rd and 8, oh, look, we got like another 11 yards. Just boom, 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 boom. I think it was like just Tyler Algier on that last drive, but Bijan was killing us all day. Fucking Cordero Patterson was getting yards all day. This defense could not stop the run against a team that does nothing but run the ball. It was awful. Desmond Ridder did not fumble in this game. We weren't able to get any off of him. We weren't able to get any sacks. I mean, the defense, the Falcons only scored 24 points, and only 17 of those were scored by the Falcons offense. It's not like the defense, gave up 30. But I don't feel impressed. The offense. Why are we so bad in the red zone? Why can't we score touchdowns? That's bad. We came off a bye. And in our first series, where these are the scripted plays, and after a bye week against a division rival that you really know pretty fucking well, you would expect we are able to at least have a series, Maybe you end up punting. Maybe you are able to get a first down or two, but you can't finish it. Sometimes that shit happens. Hopefully you get a fucking touchdown, but that's too much to ask of this team now, isn't it? I expect more than after a bye week, just a 3 and out, and getting barely any fucking yards. It's embarrassing. Not scoring a touchdown and getting 5 field goals and attempting a 6th is embarrassing. Not for the kicker, but for the offense, not being able to finish a fucking drive. The only touchdown scored by a Saints player was Derek Carr throwing a pick 6. Which was inside the 10, by the way. We had 2 turnovers inside the 10-yard line. So you look at that, think at least field goals on those drives. Falcons lose 7 points because not a pick 6. That goes from 24 to 17. 15. Let's assume both of these field goals were made. That's another 6 points. So then we probably win 21 to 17. But that's not what happened, is it? Shout out to Jesse Bates, by the way. He's the guy that got the pick 6 as Derek Carr was staring his receiver the entire time. Yeah, he just streaks down, jumps the route, and is gone. I think he was also the one that caused the fumble on Taysom Hill. I can't be mad at him. He played his ass off. That's good shit. Derek Carr also had another fumble that was recovered where it's the worst. He's holding he's not tucking the football and running. He's just kind of doing it like this. And then what do you know? It goes flying out of his hand. I want to really root for Derek Carr. And I see almost every Saints fan on Twitter going, this guy is dog shit. This guy is dog shit. This guy is dog shit. And I want to keep that faith. But when I see an awful pick 6 that essentially lost us the game in the first quarter, the inability to score touchdowns in the red zone week after week after week, and a fumble that fucking terrible, recovered or not. Yeah, I'm starting to lose that faith and that patience. I know I probably seem angry, and I am. It's not just that we lost, or that we lost to the Falcons, although, that fucking stings. It's the fact that the primary emotion I feel isn't anger, or disappointment, or even apathy. And I wish it was apathy. It's almost apathy. It's embarrassment. I felt embarrassed following this game. 3 and out after a whole fucking bye to prepare for this game, to start it. Are you serious? A pick 6 that terrible, an inability to stop this team from running the ball when you know it's the only thing they can fucking do. An inability to score a single offensive touchdown for our team. Are you kidding me? this is like no different from last year. Except last year, we swept the Falcons. We can't do that no more. It's just sad. And the fact that we came into the season with the easiest schedule in the NFL and we can't win any of these games, embarrassing. Now, am I going to jump ship? No. This is still my team. Win, lose, or draw. It's why even though I'm fucking embarrassed, I'm still wearing my Saints shirt that I got in New Orleans. I love my team. But just... Oh. Now I have to play the Lions, who are probably super fucking pissed off and are gonna want to come into New Orleans. And is it in New Orleans? I think it's a home game. And are gonna try to have a statement win. Now we should be pissed off. Like, we just lost to the fucking Falcons. We couldn't stop a soul on the ground. We couldn't score. Hopefully, we play angry. We play with the desire to dominate. We'll be the ones eating fucking kneecaps, but do I expect that from DA and Pete Carmichael? No, I really don't. I want to see this defense prowl, kill, and eat. And I don't know if they can. And that's a damn fucking shame. Let's see who's next. Oh, that's the Rams. Sorry, I couldn't read my handwriting. I was like, is that a G? Who the fuck is G-A-R? Oh, that's an L. Whoops. The Rams beat the Cardinals 37-14. It was domination. Stafford had 4 TDs. I think Kyro Williams had 2. Higbee had 2. There was this... Okay, so here's what's weird about the game. Here's a couple things. Number 1, have the Cardinals kicked an extra point all year? I feel like every time they score a touchdown, they always go for 2, whether they make it or not. I'm just... Why? Like, there's points to do that, but just... Why? Why do you do that every fucking time? I don't get it. Okay, I guess you're like, we're never going to score touchdowns, so we might as well try to make the most of it constantly. I guess. They missed 2 56-yard field goals in this game. And I bring it up because, A, it's weird that it happened twice in the same game, and 2, they actually only missed one of them because the other, they made the field goal. But then they were called on a hold, which would have then backed it up. What, it was like 10 yards? Yeah, it's a hold. It would have been 10 yards. But because... And they kicked it as time expired in the half. But because it was an offensive flag, if it's a defensive flag, because a game can't end on a defensive penalty, but it can end on an offensive penalty. So, the kick doesn't count because of the flag on y'all. But since it's double zeros and it was on the offense, the half just ends, so fuck you. And I'm not gonna lie, I just think that's pretty fucking funny. But, yeah, there's not really much to say. What do you know? Kyler Murray lost to the Rams. Has he beaten the Rams in his career? I think he has. I think he's beaten them once. Maybe twice. But it just seems like he always loses to this team. But, nothing else to really say there. Cleveland and Denver. Denver won 29-12, which A, is a scoregami, and we fucking love that. 2, I have to give it up to Denver, man. I did not mean that ironically. I did not mean that mockingly. This is a team that lost by 50 points and gave up 70. And they're now in the thick of the playoffs. This is a team where the defense is balling out. where the offense is playing efficient football. Sean Payton has turned this club around. I have to give him props. I have to respect it. With the way they're playing, I won't be surprised to see Denver in the playoffs. I don't know if they'll make it. I would not be surprised. And this might, because, it happens every year. Like, this is the team you don't want to face in the playoffs. And then a couple years ago, that team was the Colts, and then the Colts missed the playoffs by a game. And that's pretty fucking funny to me. Denver might be that team, though. This is a team with a good defense, an opportunistic defense, and yeah, a Hall of Fame quarterback who's kind of getting back to that Hall of Fame pedigree, where he's playing well, he's playing efficient, with an offensive-minded coach who has his playoff woes, but he's also won playoff games. He's won a Super Bowl. Do you really want Denver coming into your building? The Chiefs, I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, they only beat the Chiefs when Mahomes was fucking dead while playing the game. They still embarrassed that Chiefs team. And even the first game, when Mahomes was healthy, it's not like he had this dominant game. It was just like the Chiefs defense. I mean, the Chiefs defense did ball out, but it's the Broncos defense was balling out. The offense couldn't quite get it together yet. But they've kind of gotten it together, though, at this point in the season. A game against the Ravens would probably be a pretty fun defensive game. Oh my God! Could you imagine if they go to Miami? I'm now just thinking about that. What if the fucking Broncos have a rematch against the Dolphins in Miami and win? A team that lost by 50 and had 70 put on their heads play the same fucking team in the playoffs and beat them. That would be amazing to watch. And I don't say that as someone who hates the Dolphins or anything, but it's like, could you imagine that? Holy shit. Or imagine they go into Miami and get their asses beat again. I don't know what's a better story. Okay, no, the first one is the better story, because it's either you get this amazing story of redemption, or you get the Dolphins having the story of dominance. I need this. I need this now to be a playoff game. Oh my God. That's beautiful. I feel like I've just reached football nirvana thinking about this. I need this. I mean, I don't really have anything else to really say about the game. It's just, it ended on a safety. That's funny. I mean, the Broncos are the Browns, they still have a really good defense, but even still, I mean, the Broncos didn't give a shit. And they've lost Myles Garrett. And I don't think it's for the year. I think it's for a few weeks. But again, with an AFC this congested, those few weeks might end up equaling their year. Cleveland's offense is the detriment of the team. I know I said they have a championship defense, and I believe that. That offense is so bad. Is Cleveland going to miss the playoffs? I think, assuming the division leaders all stay, I think Pittsburgh is in. I'm going to say Denver is in. I can't quit Buffalo. I know they lost to Philly, but after a game that good, I just can't quit Buffalo. So let's say the Dolphins are the 4 seed. Because I think they're the 4 right now. Okay, they have a loss to the Chiefs. So let's say that at least puts them at the 3. So I think what I want is Miami at the 3 Denver at the 6, Kansas City at the 2, Buffalo at the 7, Jacksonville at the 4, and Pittsburgh at the 5. I mean, that one sounds kind of all right. And then I'm just going to assume that the Ravens get the 1. I mean, a Steelers-Ravens wild card game would be really fun, though. So let's say Chiefs get the 1. Ravens then would probably get the 2. So maybe let's say Pittsburgh falls to 7. The 3, I don't think Buffalo, though, is going to be able to get to the 5. Maybe. But I just really, really now want that Broncos-Dolphins playoff game. That sounds amazing. But anyways. Oh, also, there was this really funny play where I think there were 2 times where Cleveland had a 4th and 1. One, they just fumbled the snap and it went nowhere, and that was sad, but it was funny. There was another 4th and 1 where Kareem Hunt jumped over both the offensive line and the defensive line, and that was pretty neat. Buffalo and Philly, where Philly won 38-34. This is a game where Josh Allen very fucking clearly got horse-collared, got the ball out, and there was a receiver in the area. There's a dude right there, and they're like, we're not going to tell you what, Josh, we're not going to call the horse collar, but we are going to give you intentional grounding. Really? Like, I feel like there's a receiver close enough that you wouldn't call that grounding, but I can kind of see it. That's a fucking horse collar, man. Like, and then on that drive, because that was, inside the 10, inside the 20, they then missed the field goal, which was a very makeable field goal, and they missed another one, too, which I think was like a 45, 48-yarder. Meanwhile, they had to watch the Eagles down 3 kick a 59-yard. And it's like the elements were there. It was windy. It was definitely raining. They watched Jake Elliott nail a 59-yarder in the rain that looked like it would have been good from like 65. Meanwhile, their kicker misses 2 in a game you lost in OT. Boy, that must fucking suck to be Buffalo. Josh Allen had this godly game, and I played against him in fantasy. I would fucking know. And Jalen Hurts had this godly fucking game, and I would know because I had him on my bench this week, because sorry for thinking that this good Buffalo defense would be able to limit Jalen Hurts at least to some degree, and I'm sorry for thinking this terrible Charger defense, Lamar Jackson would fucking feast facing it, which didn't happen, by the way, and I'm still why? Blah. Anyways, though, phenomenal quarterback play by both teams. Jason Kelce had 2 false starts in a row, which is not something I see or expect to happen, and it didn't matter because Jake Elliott nailed the fucking field goal anyways. A.J. Brown had an incomplete pass that was ruled incomplete on the field, and I think if it had been ruled a fumble on the field, it probably would have stood. It was close, but I'm like, he's got the ball. He's kind of starting to turn his body, and maybe it looks like he's tucking it, which is a football move, and then it comes out. That's close. And the Bills were up in overtime at that point. If that had been called a fumble, Bills win. But it wasn't. But I can't just sit here and... There's a part of me that'll say, yeah, the Bills got hosed. But that was so close, I can't say they were hosed because of that. Your own kicker missed 2 kicks that are very makeable, while the Eagles dude didn't. That's on you. You had the ball first in overtime. And Josh Allen had, I think it was Davis that he had, wide open. And he missed him. Davis going here, Allen threw here. I think it was just... Brain stop for a second. It was miscommunication. If Davis had seen the ball, I think they catch that. I think it's a walk-off touchdown. But they had their chances, and they couldn't finish. The defense had a lead at the end of the game, but the Eagles still got in field goal range and nailed it. The defense had a lead in OT, and they let the Eagles go down the field, and Hurts just waltzes in for the walk-off touchdown. I said I thought Buffalo was going to win this game. Part of that is this is still a really good team when they can play like it. And their season is at the point where, like, they're on the brink. They're going to start fucking playing like it. And when I look at the Eagles, I'm like, okay. They had to beat the Chiefs. Like, that was the kind of game where, and it's not like, does that avenge the Super Bowl loss? No, because that winning that game doesn't transfer the trophy. But I feel like that's the kind of game where the Eagles say, we're winning this fucking game. And then the Niner game. That's a game you need to win. It's essentially for the 1 seed. It's the kind of lock that shit down. And with all the shit Niner fans were talking, and rightfully so, about how, hey, you guys beat our ass in the playoffs. We didn't have We didn't have a functioning fucking quarterback for that entire game. If we did, we'd win. And I don't want to see, like, yeah, it's fair for them to say that they would have won, but it's like, look, what fucking chance did we have in that game? How about you play us at full strength and see what the fuck happens? You think the Eagles aren't going to take that game seriously? I'm like, I think they're beating the 49ers. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I don't think the 49ers are going to go down quietly, but I trust the Eagles more at this point. I really do. So when I look at this high-intensity Chiefs game, which was that after the Dallas game? I know it was after, but I don't know if it was the week after. No, because they both had byes. It was like this huge game against the Cowboys. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't know you were behind. I popped him a little bit. But like this huge game against the Cowboys, a week off, then it's like, all right, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, and I think the Cowboys again. The Bills are the one game there that I feel like if the Eagles lost, they wouldn't care as much. They would still like to win. You want to win all the games you can. But it doesn't have the same significance as Super Bowl rematch, NFC Championship rematch, and possibly preview. Chance to sweep the closest division rival. I thought this would be the one they drop, and they very nearly did, but they didn't. This team has resolve. This team does whatever it takes to win, except against the Jets. Because, hey, Cowboys lost to the Cardinals, man. Last year, the Colts beat the Chiefs, and the Texans took them to overtime. Shit happens. But fuck, this Eagles team is really, really good. The Bills aren't pushovers when they play up to snuff. There's a non-zero chance this game could happen again. I'm not saying it will, because the Bills have a fucking uphill climb. But it could, and that's fucking nuts to me. Chiefs, Raiders. It was, oh shit, I actually completely forgot to write down the final score. I think it was 31-17. The Raiders were up 14-0 early in the game. Daniel Carlson missed a chip shot, so they easily could have been up 17-0. And then the Chiefs woke up on offense and on defense. Rice had over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. Pacheco had 2 touchdowns on the ground. The Chiefs did what they do against the NFC West. It's not even that they dominated, because it was only a 2-score game, but they got the win that they needed. The defense was able to get the stops at the end of the game. Honestly, after those first few possessions, they were just getting stops. The Raiders, down a couple scores, went for it deep on their own territory. Maneuver we like to call the Brandon Staley, and it paid off like a Brandon Staley because it didn't, and then the Chiefs got more points. The Chiefs finally scored in the second half of a game this season. They might have just woken up. And I always feel it's like this defense has been so good. That's really why they're winning games. Once the offense figures it out, because it's Mahomes and Reed, they're going to get this figured out. This team is going to be fucking scary. This might have been the game where they figured it out. Like I said, I mean, it's like, does any team really want to have, like, Denver come into their house with how Denver's playing right now? Maybe not. But does any team want to go into Arrowhead either? I think the Bills probably do, because they're like, we have to beat these fuckers in their building. Like, I think the Bills want that smoke. Denver has beaten them this year, so I think they're good with it. I don't think there's very many teams, though. Like, if the Bengals got in, they 100% would want it. But I don't think there's a lot of teams that want to go into Kansas City or host Kansas City. Like, if I have to pick like I've said, I think if the Bills make it, they're my Super Bowl pick, because holy shit, if you get in with that schedule, you got hot at the right time. But aside from that, Kansas City would be my Super Bowl pick. I really will not be surprised if it's Eagles-Chiefs again. Speaking of AFC heavyweights, Baltimore, not the Chargers, but Baltimore. Baltimore won 20-10 in a game where the Ravens defense outscored Lamar Jackson in terms of fantasy points. And yes, I was playing against the Ravens defense. This is a game where Keenan Allen fumbled, then Austin Eckler fumbled, then Justin Herbert fumbled, and then threw a fucking Hail Mary interception. This was a game that sucked to watch. Not because it was a boring game, but purely because of fantasy bullshit. This is a game in which Zay Flowers had 2 touchdowns, both of which had funny celebrations. One where he throws the ball like a bouquet of flowers because his name is Flowers, and Lamar Jackson, he's like explaining it to Lamar, and Lamar's giving him this look like, that's stupid. Why would you do that? And then he has the second one where he kicks it like a soccer ball and scores a goal, and I'm like, that's really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. This is a game in which the Chargers had this really fun play where it was a designed pitch, or like not even really a pitch. It was just a designed lateral, and it was really cool, and I liked it a lot. But did it matter? No, this team isn't good. Brandon Staley is gone at the end of the year. Like at this point, they're not even in the congestion that I keep talking about. They're a couple games back. They're done. They're not sniffing the playoffs this year. There's a part of me that just kind of wonders at this point, do you just fire Staley and let Kellen Moore take over and say, all right, we got a full offensive coach, maybe this will help? I mean, maybe we can make that kind of push, but at least give him an audition for next year. Maybe, but Staley's gone, and I don't think the Chargers are going anywhere. And then at the end, the Bears went up to Minnesota and won 12-10. The Bears were 4-5 on field goals because, like the Saints, they couldn't score touchdowns. This was a game with 6 total turnovers. Justin Fields fumbled on 2 straight drives near the end of the game, but they were still able to win. Josh Dobbs threw 4 interceptions, nearly threw 5. 2 of them were not his fault. They bounced off the hands of his receivers and intercepted. The other 2 were pretty fucking bad, especially the last one, where he throws the ball directly to a Bears player, like 5 yards in front of him, who bobbles the ball and can't catch it, and then another Bears player comes in and grabs it. It was funny. Like, I laughed so hard when I watched it. Like, I have to rewind this. Like, there's no way that fucking happened. Oh my gosh, it fucking happened. That's comedy gold. The Bears aren't a good team, but they've got a few wins. They're like 4-5, 4-6, whatever exactly. No, they're not 4. I think they're... Are they 4 wins? Or maybe they are 5 wins, but I think they're 4 wins. They're not good, but they can be competitive. They can win games. They might play spoiler for a division rival trying to get a playoff spot or trying to get some seeding. It wouldn't surprise me. Do I think they're going to go on a playoff run of their own? I don't. But I feel like if they can keep playing well and stay competitive and, knock out a few other people, maybe they do keep Fields and get him Marvin Harrison Jr. So now he's throwing to Marvin Jr. and DJ Moore. You've got yourself a fucking offense. And then, the Patriots go, hey, thanks for Caleb Williams. The Vikings, they're about to go into their bye. And the coach even said, he's like, look, we're going to evaluate where we are with QB because Josh Dobbs did not have a good game. He had a pretty fucking terrible game. And yes, 2 of those picks weren't his fault. 2 of them were, and there was almost another third that was his fault. He did not play well. Is Nick Mullins going to be better? Probably not. I still want to see them play Josh Dobbs. That's not just me being, as a Saints fan, like, well, I hate the Vikings, so I hope they keep playing him so they lose. Like, I just want to see Josh Dobbs do well, man. But, with the Packers looming, the Vikings need to be careful. The Seahawks need to be careful, too, with the Rams are looming, too. I didn't really say anything about that, but they're, 5-6 as well? Maybe 6-5? The Rams and the Packers could sneak in, especially because now the Rams have swept the Seahawks. The Seahawks are really kind of at the end of their rope here. And then after playing Dallas, they play San Francisco next week. I really think Seattle's going to fall out of the playoff picture. Maybe they'll still sneak back into the playoffs, but the NFC isn't as congested as the AFC, and I don't know. I think it's because of most of the teams that are threatening are below 500, plus the NFC South being dog shit. It makes it not nearly as fun, aside from the 4 teams at the top, including Dallas. But that was week 12. There's some fun shit going on. There's going to be some really fun and interesting games next week. I'm really looking forward to it.